double Batman.
Hello, 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 everybody. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is BigChonis. Happy Saturday to you all. Hello to everybody in the chat room so far. Expressive RR. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Remember, you guys can follow me on Twitter. I'm at BigChonis. These are all my best ideas. I take technical analysis very seriously. I am a crypto trader, a mentor, a chart psychologist, an investor, a photographer, a chef. Please do your own research. I am super excited to have the one and only BigCheds in the house tonight with us talking Bitcoin. Cheds, hello. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, my friend. That was quite an introduction, I must say.
Remember, you guys can follow Cheds on Twitter. He is at BigCheds, and he constantly puts out tremendous content. And I'm just like to have you here, Cheds, because, you know, we used to do a lot of videos together talking about Bitcoin and doing some analysis on some of the price action we've been seeing. And it's just great to have this kind of opposing views, because sometimes we talk about things that either you notice that I don't see and vice versa. And let's talk about some Bitcoin here, because we've had some crazy price action just in the last literally half hour as we're heading into our closing candle. We're only about 12 minutes away from the close of this day. And this has been quite a day where we had a really beautiful and very fast, like $300 bump in the price of Bitcoin, wicked off a few times there, and kind of tried to keep it going. But clearly this last half hour is just putting in some bearishness. Cheds, what are you seeing here on some of this price action?
I mean, you kind of pointed out a couple obvious things. We had a real beautiful green candle there. And typically with that type of a green candle, you're going to watch if it does fail initially. Initially, obviously, you have a bullish continuation pattern, which failed. It looks to me like a bullish pennant. BigChonis, see how it failed here?
Sure.
So you're going to kind of want to watch for the midpoint of that initial green candle right around there, 62.45. So Steve Nissen talks about this in his second book, Beyond Candlesticks. So from that entry point there down to that low of that candle, at 6100, 6112, right around here, BigChonis, that's going to be actually a legitimate support area. But we don't see volume. Like, where's my clue? I see a candlestick, but without volume, where's your context, right? So, like, it's actually surprising to me that we broke bearish if we're just kind of looking at what's in front of us, because you see how there's strong volume behind this bit long green candle, and you see how the sell volume, everything tapered off. There wasn't a lot of evidence of a continued, like, a bearish persistence.
So you're saying when you're looking to see if the consolidation has ended and we're about to break bullish, you want to look for a declining sell volume.
Well, bearish or bullish. We're going to break one way or another. You're looking for a pivot, but my point would be there's a context. There's a mixture of green and red candles in that consolidation phase. And you can look at the strength behind each of those candles for a signal. So there wasn't like a lot of selling off after that buying, is my point. Now, the candles themselves were mixed. We didn't really have a lot of bad candles. Clearly we have this high wave candle here that you're hovering over right there, high wave along upper and lower wick. And we did have, clearly the run stalled here. We have a dark cloud cover here on this red candle, forming a dark cloud cover.
That's a pretty big one too, you know?
Yeah, but there's not a ton of volume behind it though.
Yeah.
See, that's kind of be like a mixed signal. So you got to kind of look at it that way. So clearly we've broken down. You're looking for support. We're within the support of this candle right now, and that's kind of what's in front of us on the 30-minute chart, which you have.
Now, it's interesting because when we see this decline in volume and specifically decline in bear volume, especially with these candles here. You're looking for that bullish continuation. This was great, and this kind of happened very quickly. And listen, as you pointed out, because of how quickly this move happened, this is a 30-minute candle that brought us from 61.14 to 64.52. So that's like a 350 change in 30 minutes there. Correcting, consolidating from a move like that is healthy, even though we're seeing some pretty nasty red sell volume. Especially, we want to watch to see the last 10 minutes of this candle.
I mean, I
how
think,
long our lower wick can be.
Right, but we don't need to necessarily overemphasize this particular time frame. Like, we're looking at like a day or two of action. So we're this is more of just like an exercise rather than what's like actually Bitcoin doing. But you're making a great point. I would just kind of briefly, before we look at the bigger picture, you had a inverse Bart Simpson chart Simpson,
very clearly,
and you had a chance for continuation. Okay, and you had a nice bullish continuation pattern that failed. Okay, not the end of the world. So
you think because we stopped here?
Okay, but just on that wick, you would have had a second show. You're showing here at 64 on that first candle or second candle.
Yeah.
No, but you clearly could have retested it on a bull break of the bull pennant.
Yeah.
I mean, so it just didn't happen.
So do you think, though, Dan, that these last two really bearish candles wipes out this move?
This first one has no volume behind it. Look at the second candle.
The first one doesn't.
This is a high wave candle. This is also a high wave candle right now.
So these are buyers here, though, because we're seeing this, because we're seeing the wick here, and that's the point here. As you mentioned, the previous candle was just a pretty big price movement
without volume.
Interesting.
Right.
This is where
it almost fell through a couple floors and then caught some support.
And what it caught is an area clearly.
Let's go daily though,
where we had buyers sitting.
Let's see what the daily's doing.
So let's see basically how this candle is about to close. Let's see how it looks on a higher time frame here. I'm gonna get rid of my volume just to show what we're looking at here.
I mean, it's like it's starting to slow down.
My first thought is a spinning top.
Sure.
Some sort of it's a
high wave candle.
And you want to rate to see how long which wick is longer.
It's not about this candle. It's about what the context of this candle is. So we're seeing this candle is at a pattern of 4 candles. Okay. Prior to these 4 candles, we have a pronounced downtrend with a failed spinning top. Okay. And then you had a kind of pattern broke down again back. If you hover over here. Okay, what's this? The 8-6, 8-7. The pattern breaks down again. Now you have these 4 candles. It suggests there's a little bit of a battle between bulls and bears.
A little bit.
It's starting to slow down. I think there's a little bit more of an argument that bulls are defending their ground, is what I'm seeing, because 2 of the 4 candles are green. Right? So you have to kind of start to look at it that way. Is it potentially forming maybe an eve bottom, a slower rounded bottom? Okay. So you have to kind of consider just kind of not this candle, what its context is, in terms of where it came from and what it might mean.
What does it mean then that on the daily, which is a high time frame here, we have so many consecutive red in a row,
right?
And we're not seeing that. Oh, there's a bounce there somewhere. There's a bounce there somewhere.
Let's just zoom out. It makes sense. It's leveling off at a logical horizontal support area. We have all these days back here. We have the neckline. We have the head of the inverse head and shoulders. We have kind of the right shoulder,
because this was 5,700.
Look, we have clearly a news-driven sell-off event. Okay, after a nice technical rally, a breakout. We have a nice technical rally, and then we have a news-driven bear move here.
Lack of news, really, because
there was the ETF.
Well, right.
That's the second news, okay, which is being interpreted a couple different ways. Clearly, I think the bulls are still holding it above 6K, which is notable.
Does the speed, though, of this decline?
I need the volume. How can we look at candles without volume behind them, right? That's the context.
Well, let's go to. This is a different.
We'll just throw the
No, because trust me, this is high T exchange.
I got you.
Let's go volume. There we go.
Okay. Right, you got to see volume. Like everything, every signal is volume. You can remember all those penny stock charts we looked at, right? It was like, oh, look at this great chart formation. Right. There was no volume behind it,
which means they had no foundation,
no signal,
any kind of a move.
All right, so okay, that's all fine. I mean, there you go. So
we're having a descending flag.
Let's draw some horizontal support. Let's draw some support lines from the neck and from the right shoulder here, okay? Because we're kind of in a support zone.
Okay,
we're
so we bottomed at 57.58. Okay, at the end of June, and that was the top of our inverse head and shoulder, right?
Right.
That brought us to our super nice, nice run we had here. We're holding, okay, you could argue we're putting in a higher low, right? Because we still have a couple $100 here of support that can currently hold us up.
Now, let's zoom out so we see, if we want to know, if we're talking about higher low, let's see the context. All right, so, I mean, we're trying to get a higher low is the point. We're trying to, it's like willing to buy, WTB, higher low, right?
Well, since we have this structure up, I'm kind of convert to log here.
Yeah.
Because I think it really shows a very interesting situation here where, and let me just play around here quickly with my lines here, because what we're seeing is the same resistance line continuing to hold the Bitcoin price down as it was rejected 1, 2, 3, 4 over several months here. Okay,
I think that's a pretty good line. It's pretty legit. How about a lower support line? Why don't we start?
Now this
why
is
don't we
tricky.
ignore this wick?
That's the thing. So if we ignore
the wick, if you go
December
candle close, let's
6th
go candle close. If you go candle close, you kind of eliminate the noise. Exactly.
And I'm kind of, if you want to go close, this close.
So,
actually, no, this was after you.
Right about there. There you go. That's rough. So we're looking at a falling wedge.
We're looking at a falling wedge. It's not a triangle because this is not flat.
This could take a lot of time.
And people keep talking about how we're doing a descending triangle, which we are, but we're not.
It's open to interpretation.
And this is a great point, Chad.
Whatever you see.
Yes, we do have an area here where we kind of have a flat bottom, but we're $700 above it here.
There's like 6 ways to draw the same trend line.
Either way, the trend is every time we rally,
it just depends.
Smaller.
That's a great debate. It's like, are you a trend line purist, or is it more about the context? Is it about the gist of what the trend line is trying to say? Like, this is the range, this is the support and resistance area, not exactly a line on a screen, right? Like dots on a screen, right? So
this being said, if we take out for horizontal and just use our sloping trend line here, because we hit it here, because we hit it here, because we hit it here. Do you think this area is our next stop?
Maybe, it's like okay.
I mean, logically it could be, but then this wick scares me here.
Here's what you want to do. Here, look at trend lines, Western technical analysis. What you want to do is you're going to combine it with hopefully a candle signal. So you want to see like a morning star at the bottom trend line, and you want to see like 4 shooting stars like at the top of the trend line. You want to combine.
So not just a touch of the trend line,
signals.
but have a candle.
That gives you a signal, or you want to see big volume at that trend line, either the break or the support. You need. You see what I'm saying? That's what you got to have a combination of signals. Not just a trend line.
You brought up signals and indicators. Let's look at a few here. Let's look at our RSI here, because what we've been seeing here is, and I talk about this on my shows, that once we break 50 on the daily, which is a higher time frame, we get into this bearish, weaker market territory. And the fact that we fell so quickly on this move here just shows. Look, it's this middle finger right here that the RSI on the daily is giving us.
That's a 3 Buddha.
Exactly, and you can see patterns in our indicators, not just.
Looks like Darth Vader though too, right?
I have like a Ben Affleck kind of Batman thing.
There's something,
maybe. Or a spooky ghost.
Yeah, that's not good. Let's zoom out though. We're kind of microed in here. I mean, look at this. Okay, there you go. Bearish continuation pattern. The RSI. RSI bearish continuation pattern. What do you see?
I see that.
What do you see?
30
bear pennant right here. Look at this. Bear pennant. Bearish continuation pattern.
So
that suggests there's going to be another move down. Just if you're just in that one signal, that's why everything has to be taken in context.
We're doing a
generally speaking, look at that look at that lower highs, and presumably lower highs. We haven't really hit it yet, but and higher lows, right after kind of a long descent. So it's a bearish continuation pattern.
This
but it's just one signal.
Right.
Oh, I told the pizza delivery guy that he could. We
left
instructions for that.
I think what's also really interesting here, I'm just going to clean it up and get rid of all my lines here for a second. How 30 over here and 30 here, and then breaking it. And you remember on the daily, it seems every time Bitcoin does break 30.
But let's see the price. We need a context. I can't just look at the RSI.
Well, I'll get to that.
Like, how did the price respond to that?
Because it's a good point. Because not necessarily a lower RSI does not mean a bottoming of Bitcoin. We actually seen RSI put in a higher RSI, and the price actually will go lower. So
it's called divergence, but let's see.
Exactly.
Let me see what the price.
So let's look at. Okay, this was 2.5. This was before our super V bottom in February. This one, this one here Okay,
Okay.
it's interesting because we bought them on the RSI,
Yep.
but we still had hundreds of more dollars to go in the
Both.
price of Bitcoin.
Scrolling a little bit. Zoom in so I can.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay. So, just a couple. There's one point I want to make.
Mhm.
A lot of times it's the second dip. So I've seen a lot of times you get like the first dip below 30,
Mhm.
goes to like 20, 22, and then will come up, and the price will continue to make new lows. And then it's like that second dip where you get almost like an RSI double bottom,
Mhm.
like 15, 20, like really oversold.
We do see that, and this is a
And
clear
I mean, you can
example
clear
here.
divergence.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
clears divergence. Where's your OBV?
Down the bottom here.
So did we get a
pretty
little bit? A
flat.
little bit. I mean, depends. Yeah, pretty flat. Not so much
We didn't,
divergence.
yeah, the OBV really didn't start cranking until we really had our bull move starting here. And what's interesting, you talk about divergence. We are currently at a higher price right now, okay, than we were when we bottomed here. Yet we're at a lower, much lower actually. Look at that. This is where we technically we should be higher than this, and yet we're lower than that. So we have a bearish divergence, you could argue, on our OBV with a higher price now, but less people are holding coin because of the little drop off of our OBV. I also find
I don't necessarily hold on. Go back though, but so if you'd be looking for would be a hidden bearish divergence, which would be a continuation pattern, which would be seeing lower highs in the oscillator, and the price is still making new highs.
This is a big stretch here because I'm basically
I don't see
pulling a good
divergence.
I'm just thinking, why aren't we higher with our OBV now?
Because it's right back where the support
It's not. It's
was.
higher than it was here.
Yeah, it's
Yet
a slightly
the OBV
lower
is higher than
high.
it is. So we're a lower high in the OBV and a higher
a
high
little
on the
bit,
price.
but then it depends on where you start. I mean, you have to,
Yeah,
I just don't think. I mean, I'll grant you.
I'm clutching at straws a little bit just because the spacing is there.
So,
but again,
right.
it's still this is a sign to me that Bitcoin is still weak. And
Well, hold on. Is there anything you like right now? What do you like? Is there anything that's hot? Is there any charts that are good, or is it pretty much?
Let's keep
Oh,
with
okay.
Bitcoin. We got
okay.
lots of more Bitcoin to talk about.
Oh, my apologies.
So we got our stochastics here. Now we've been talking about how unprecedented the bearishness, the pancaking of these two lines on a daily chart.
Is that pancake theory?
This is I think wow. IHOB basically.
Yes, that's correct.
But no, so and then you see here, okay, normally when we bottom out like this, there's there's the bull pop, and we shoot up something like this, right? When we reset, something like this, when we reset, or we have the volume to do a double tap and then push. This is like a struggle. This is like a hungover the next morning because this guy's trying to get out of bed, and now we're bearishly crossing once again.
Well, this is a great example. I'm glad you brought that up, because we actually should wait on that. We shouldn't draw any inference from that. We're only we're only a couple hours into our candle close. So that oscillator,
a couple minutes.
Yeah, but that oscillator basically is assuming we close right here, right now, tomorrow. So we can't extrapolate. We need to cut off a little bit.
Close what happened there.
No, but that right. So you have to go back. We've kind of talked about this before, where like it's giving you the signal for today's price action. We're only like 1/24 of that
just
candle.
More confirmation.
So you have to go back on that. You can't especially with stochastics RSI, like it will give you a cross really early in the day. Like say you close at 6,200, and then in the first couple hours you're at like 6,300 or something like that.
Well, we just closed.
It will look like a crossing buy signal back up when you really haven't had a full day to kind of warrant. So when you're doing that on the daily chart, you have to go back a little bit. You have to chop off like 5%, right? You have to kind of look for action where the trend is, and you can't get a closing signal really till a close, and kind of based on that, in my opinion.
And also just again, waiting that extra candle for that extra confirmation is always important if
huge.
You want to make sure you confirm what's going on there. I'm just going to quickly talk about a MACD, and basically what I want to point out from a historical standpoint here is really this was our big parabolic move. That's how high we can get on an upside. This is where we pulled back very viciously in February there, and you see that we were actually on a right move here, but you see once we had that bear crossover, and again this is a trailing indicator, so this happens after the fact. But we clearly see the last time that same crossover happened, we knew what happened to the price of Bitcoin. So using indicators as early warning signals on higher time frames, this tells you a story as well, and combined with all your other indicators.
Well, so let me ask you, how much do you value that personally in your kind of trading moves? How much do you use the MACD personally?
I only use it on higher time frames because
that's
of
smart.
it being a trailing indicator, and I don't.
So for you, like a 10-minute would be a higher time frame.
Well, if I'm scalping the minute, I'll look to the 10 for confirmation.
Do you know,
right?
guys? You know, we're hanging out. He'll be like, "Did you see that 3-minute chart?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?"
Sometimes when there's sideways price action, you go to a low time frame, it gets a little more interesting.
All right, sorry about that.
That's funny. Hey, why don't we bring in our Johnny B's, otherwise known as our Bollinger Bands, because Chets and I both love using these. They're a great way to determine if we're outside of a move of a standard deviation. Now, you see, when we break out bullishly on a daily chart of our upper BB being rather wide here, this is tighter, this is much wider. You see how the price really doesn't like being outside of the BB on the up as well as the down, and so both cases we were out there for a day.
So is that like when you're like just out of high school, and like you try to get a job and you move back in home, you know, like you go above the Bollinger Band, you're not ready for the real world.
You realize how much rent costs and all that
Yep,
stuff.
you're like,
nope.
Wait, my own food? What do you mean I gotta buy my own food?
FICA, what's this? So yeah, so then you come in, and now what we find here is we're finding support on our lower BB, and now the price has whittled itself back in after several days. We did actually close outside here. We came back in, and then we held support 2 days ago, and now, wow, what a spinning top. That actually came up a little bit towards the very end.
So that's actually a nice candle for us. We have a tweezer bottom with a bullish harami.
Oh, it is tweezer bottom.
This is a tweezer bottom with a bullish harami. So tweezer bottoms actually take on more significance if it can complete a candle pattern such as this. This is actually tweet worthy.
Now, what about these two? Why aren't these tweezer bottoms?
Because the lows are too far off.
They're
the low
too
of
far
day.
off.
Correct.
These are pretty nail on.
Yeah,
by
they need to be
bucks, right?
Yeah,
Hold
pretty
on,
much
low,
nearly
60,
identical.
10 and 60.08. So $1.90. I think we can round up. Is this okay?
That's clearly a tweezer bottom.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, so the question is going to be the size. The second, so to take two things away from this. Clearly, you have technically you have a double bottom of the candle wick, but today's real candle body, the difference between the open and the close is small, and that suggests a reduction of force of the prior trend, which is a bearish trend. If you look at the prior three candles, two of those three candles were almost Maribozo, big red, like you're losing money candles, and we have this nice bullish harami. It's really nice small candle body, and then we'll see what it does today.
Right here.
So
Yeah,
it actually would be fine to have
it
would actually be nearly ideal to have another small body. Shows a little more indecision of the bears, and the bears start to rethink their position, right, and give short slowly time to cover. You have to see how it plays out, because you can just form another bearish continuation pattern.
Definitely.
But you're at support. What's important is where, these patterns is where you're at in terms of resistance and support. This is clearly dealing with the head, the support of the head area on that prior inverse head and shoulders. So I think it has a decent shot to hold it.
Do you think the pattern itself being back to 6,000 here makes a difference? Well, that totally didn't work. The fact that how many times, I guess what I'm asking is how many times are we going to test 6K?
Okay, so here's what you're asking.
Before it fails.
Because you have to decide which narrative are you going to follow. Is the narrative that we have the inverse head and shoulders, so therefore now it's bullish, and within that narrative is retest of the shoulder, a successful shoulder support hold and bounce. Okay, that's your narrative. But next, if you succeed in that narrative, you then have to deal with the multiply tested and rejected upper trend line. So then that becomes the narrative, and then you can break that narrative. And then what is it then? And what is your target? Is it the height of the wedge? How are you measuring that? What is your resistance? What is the resistance you're gonna deal with if you can break that? So I mean, you could throw out targets. Anyone can throw out a target. It's just really hard to go for me beyond a couple candles. I know you do Elliott waves, and you're probably going to jump into that later, or no?
I would never on your watcher. No, I think you brought up the head versus and shoulder there. I just want to bring this up here. This hasn't happened yet, obviously, but this could be setting up for something like this potentially. If we get some sort of a bull bounce and a retest of about 6,800, which we talked about used to be our inverse head and shoulder neckline, could now actually become our new bearish head and shoulders, both shoulder blade lines, And
well,
right where we're
minimally on a bounce, you're going to have to deal with that level. What is that level of what you have?
6,800.
So right, so clearly that's a level you
there.
cannot ignore, whether it's a head and shoulders or whether it's a arm and hammer, whatever you want to call it. You're going to have to deal with that.
Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. right. You're going to have to deal with it as a resistance area.
Fascinating. Let's bring up some of our EMAs.
Do you have snacks? You told me there'd be snacks. Is that on air?
It's in the green room. Is he supposed to bring some into the green room?
Sorry.
So Cheds and I always have a debate about which MAs to use, which EMAs to use. We're probably going to still have it now, but I want to bring up a few that I like to use. And I kind of split them up. So these are my EMAs. I use my 12 and my 26. For me personally, again, every trader has their own techniques they like to use and everything, but since I kind of got started using Coinbase and GDAX, where they only offer the EMA 12 and 26, I got very used to watching the price action and how it reacts to those particular indicators. And so what we were watching here is a few things that on a daily time frame, again a high time frame here, when we had a bull cross here, when our lower 12 broke into our, that's our 55, that's 26 there. Same deal. When we had our bull cross here, where our 12 broke through our 26 here, this basically was a great sign after being rejected for so long that a bullish move was about to happen, and really nice one here. Thusly, when we crossed bearishly here, okay, this happened, many days ago. So this was kind of another indicator that say, hey man, we just had a nasty bear cross here, and look what that led to. And again, these crosses create extra momentum either way. They help on the way up and they help on the way down. So I see on the daily, this is what's happening now. As a scalper, I definitely like to go into a lower time frame and see kind of what's happening there. And similarly, when we were rejected to not cross bullishly here, we actually did have a cross here, which actually just gave us a little bit of a push here. The failure, okay, hasn't completed yet. We have not crossed bearishly on our 1 hour, but our 4 hour may suggest something differently, and this is basically.
So, but you raise a great question. So it's like, how do you deal with bias? Because if you're a bull, you're like, well, I like the 1 hour. If you're barely, how do you deal with that, BigChonis?
So, Chads, the way I like to do this is to get as many time frames as I can that all tell the same story I'm looking for.
Is that why you have 6 monitors here, so you can look at 6 different time frames?
If you want to go all the way, you got to go all the way. So I start low time frames, and I'm zooming out. So my 1 hour told the story. My 4 hour now is telling me that once we cross bearishly here, again, the lower through down into a higher here, we've been rejected, and still rejected here. There you go. So we're pretty far apart here, and we're pretty far rejected. And we also see that on the 4 hour, our EMA 26 here, 12.
Yeah. That's what Binance uses as well, right? I believe it's 1226.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Resistance, strong resistance. So a lot of traders.
Chart guys,
because he uses the GDAX.
Shout out to chart guys.
Yeah, hey Danny. But we have this rejection, and now again, major rejection. So look at this is bearish to me. We cannot get above our EMA 26, and that's a way that I like to use some EMAs for that.
So what happens if we do get above it? How do you play it?
So the way we get above it, there's two things. There's the setup, and then there's the break. The setup is something like this, where we get closer, okay, and we're like, break bullish, and then nope, pull the rug out, the bears win. And again, the bears win.
But these are bearish continuation patterns. You wouldn't expect to break it with that type of candle pattern, right?
This feels,
so the question
does this
is,
feel different? Does
right?
This 4 hour pattern feel different?
A little bit. Yeah, you could. This could be like a head. You got the left shoulder. Now you could form another right shoulder.
So you're going another inverse H and S?
100%. I mean, if you're gonna, it's just as valid as the one you just did on for the top.
Do you think the time frame makes a difference? Lower versus, we got to go to the 4. I mean, the 4 hours legit.
4 hour minimum. I gotta go 4 hour minimum unless you're looking to get.
All right, so listen, let's play this out. Let's say we will go wick to neckline-ish, right? All right, and now take that same width.
You need volume though. It's so weird for me to look at candles without volume behind them.
It's just to keep the things clean.
But you know what I mean? That's like the rule. Like you don't know how like a candle. You don't know how to interpret it without the volume behind it.
They would start the price just a little higher, so I don't have to do that. But that helps.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I mean, see, this is like the most important rule of my whole trading like philosophy, and you won't give me the volume. All right. So yeah.
And this was really good volume there.
You can see the bears. You clearly see the bears are having their moments where they're kind of terrifying the bulls, right? And so that kind of sticks until you get a couple couple moves with some bull power coming in, and we've had a little bit, but
yeah, this is a pattern too we always see if we're in a bear market. Now you see where our neckline kind of brings us. It brings us right back to the top of our previous area here that was holding support before we broke really bearish here. Again, right around 7K. So a retest of 7K. If this was a completed,
well, you can also you can actually call this a. Do you know this is actually qualifies as this double bottom?
How so?
The head and the shoulder can be a double bottom.
So you're saying we don't even get the
yes,
right?
you actually don't even need that. You could also very well qualify this as a double bottom. We call it a double atom, right? Double V bottom. Right, double bottom.
Male, yeah.
Yes, and it's clearly a double bottom in the grand scheme if we're talking about between whatever 61 and 60. Like 250 if it does bounce.
So something like this here.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that also could be a double bottom.
These candles here are almost kind of beginning to validate that.
Suggest that it's not a double bottom.
This right shoulder feels a little too tight there, a little too stiff neck. That's a kind of a. I'm really.
Yeah, we'll see what it does. We'll see what it does. But we're just kind of for fun talking about what it could do, how we could look at it, and that's how it's. I think it's. I try not to forecast out too much because you don't know what it really will do. But volume, I think, gives a hint.
Whew, okay, let's.
Want to do any of the other ones, or what's on your mind?
See
chat room.
We'll get to the chat room in a minute. Hey, yeah, I'll just do a shout out here. Let's get to 100. Come on, we're almost at 100 live here. Guys, once again, I want to thank you so much for joining us. My name is BigChonis. I am joined tonight, guest in studio, BigCheds. He is a great chart analysis. He mostly focuses on volume and candle patterns. And he's the guy that I asked, what's the technical this? Or, hey, can you confirm this for me? Because he has a great understanding of strong TA, because he reads these really big textbooks that are pretty impressive, that kind of intimidate me, but he seems to just whip right through them. And that's why he's just a great resource to basically follow on Twitter. And just in terms of his thoughts on Bitcoin and price action, you also, Cheds, mentioned earlier that we used to do OTC penny stocks, and a lot of that experience has really helped us in terms of analyzing crypto because of volatility, your classic pump and dumps, which we classically see, and just knowing what a parabolic move is.
Sure.
And that whenever it does happen, there's always an unwind very similar consistently to what we're currently seeing in Bitcoin here. I want to bring up the longs and the shorts because I think a lot of people have been watching this as well. You all remember back in April, we had our short squeeze.
Did you say y'all?
Y'all? I'm keeping it real, okay? So
Texas accent?
we lived there once, actually,
That's true.
didn't we? So we had our short squeeze. Now, I know you are no stranger to the short squeeze, Cheds.
That's true.
Hush comes over the cloud there.
That's true. I do hire midgets every Thursday. That's correct.
God, don't go there. Little people.
Sorry, my apologies.
So we have our shorts here. I'm going to go over a 4-hour because the 4-hour shows a couple things here I want to talk about. The first one is we have a gap up here in our price action when we did have our short squeeze. The action happened so quickly and so precipitously that the actual price fell before a lot of these areas. There it is. You can see it right there. Very big gap there, okay? And I always feel, and we've seen this before in classical charting, that gaps, for the most part, like to get filled.
That's a belief in Western. That's a Western belief about gaps. Japanese technical analysis is called a window. So that would be a falling window. And there's some mixed review on that. I think it can become self-fulfilling. I would say gaps often do fill. But it's if the prescription that they always fill is a Western form of technical analysis thinking that comes from that.
And what we mean by filling the gap here is this is our price action. This is our current price action right here. We got to get up here and basically touch this green line, which is the very tippy top of where the gap actually formed here. Now, I've been looking for this rejection area in the price of Bitcoin. We see clearly that this area here around 30,000 contracts has been acted once before as major resistance. And once again, I mean, look at this.
Why is it major resistance if it's only once? What makes it major resistance?
Because of how I felt the price action.
Because you felt?
Because of I felt. This was a V top. Strong rejection.
Right. V for victory.
With a wicked pullback here, okay? It's like you climb the mountain, you trip, and you fall all the way down just as fast, okay? And now we literally have like its twin sister over here doing something very similar in the same area of rejection.
You know, it's interesting. Of that pattern, we didn't quite get the full target. If you go back, you were just showing me, and I'll show you with my finger, and you can illustrate in the screen. That was your channel. So the height of it essentially was your payoff on the breakout.
Here.
We got like 70% of that. So if you had a measured target on that breakout, just below that orange line, and you're trying to think where's it going to go to, you take the height of that first wave just from kind of within that channel you're drawing, and that gives you your target, and it gave you like 60-70% of that. So that's pretty good.
Interesting, Chad. Very interesting.
Yeah.
What about this move here? So quickly, the shorts getting cocky and saying, "Oh my God, we're really bearish now.
Right.
We weren't bearish before." And this look when this started. This only the rise in the shorts, people, started well after our really nasty pullback in Bitcoin. So I feel a lot of this move was they were just behind the game. They weren't bearish enough when Bitcoin started to drop from 85 because they had been burned so many times.
It was news.
But the fact that they rose so quickly here.
Yeah, because the news. This is like that's called a paradigm shift where everything changed. Everyone has new information. So you kind of the market's got to resettle. You have to renegotiate. What's this digital, store of value currency worth? That's the debate, and it's constantly being redebated.
And that's why it's a 24/7 market. The price action never ends.
So that's why we have a deal. I sleep 12 hours, and you sleep the other 12. One of us is always watching the market.
It's a 24/7 crypto life for sure. And so we're looking for support here. Potentially this area here, this area here. We could definitely come back down here and test support. Support here. Remember, this is inverse to Bitcoin. So this is showing that there's still now a little bullish sentiment. Although you see, we actually wicked out here pretty decently on this 4-hour candle. So this sell-off started actually before our pop and kind of capitulated halfway through into our pop here.
Three outside down.
Yeah, and that's this, and a lot of this is just like, hey, let's
not a dark cloud cover though, because it didn't go more than half the candle.
And the 4 hours long enough to kind of make that meaningful to notice. Interesting. So I think this will actually currently find a little support here, maybe here. See if it can rally. Remember, this rising
3 black crows
is a bearish Bitcoin scenario. Now, do the 3 black crows, is that continuation or is that
yeah, it's
reversal?
a bearish continuation pattern.
So I think it could go.
I mean, you'd be liberal. It's not, it's clearly the last 2, although you got the big shadow. You could say this one, you could, I mean, they're not that big. I guess I'm just saying it looks bearish. It's really not 3 black crows.
Yeah.
It's at least one big one, a couple of mini crows behind it.
And this wick here was almost the size of this body. So a lot of this was basically stopped and bought up. And again, this rises. It's a bearish sentiment. Just quickly on the longs here. Yep. We're not seeing the longs get any confidence, really. They really gave a lot of it back when we dropped from 85. Yep. And they knew it. Because look at it. They started to liquidate literally at the top. This was like 8,500 Bitcoin. Yep. So they knew. Sure. This was a big sign here that, hey, man, money was made.
Well, the news. I keep saying, I mean, it's like boom.
But this was pre-ETF. ETF was like here, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
But no, ETF, the first ETF, the Van, whatever, twins.
No, yes, the twins, yes.
That's right. That's the point I'm making.
You're right. So this is Gemini. Yeah. Very good, Cheds. This is Gemini. This is Chonis, and that's Cheds. And this is Banwick being postponed. Both very bearishly acted on the candles there. Okay, let's take a look at the chat room here, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's take a look here. Let me just give quick shout outs here if I could. Robert Dennis, what's up, guys? John. This other guy with me is BigCheds. I'm going to follow him on Twitter at BigCheds. Jerry, what's up? Kevin. What's up, Anthony? Hey, Anthony. Okay. What's up, Anthony? Hey, Robert. Hi, Diane. Okay. Let's keep the politics out of this for tonight. What's up, Brian? BTC going down? Yeah, let's figure that out. Shawnee, when were we last above AMAC twice? We can definitely check that out. What's up, Kev? Yeah, late show. What's up, Ryan? Thanks, buddy. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Expressive. Let's see here. Alts. Now let's talk about some alts here. And because Chads, we've been looking for when is it alt season, okay? And people are looking for. Oh, hey Jane. Hello. Hey Paul. Hey Brian. What's up, guys? Thanks for joining me. What's up, Bjorn? Hey, Germany. All right. ETF approval. Yeah, interesting. All right, so we'll talk about ETF approvals and we'll talk about the alts here. Because listen, Cheds, people have gotten crushed on these alts.
And you've been in cash. You've been waiting.
We had this debate a couple weeks ago where I actually got out of the last of some of mine. And I did hold some of my ETC until we got kind of right into that the Coinbase listing there. But I think we were kind of hoping for the Coinbase listing to bring ADA, back to life, to bring BAT, some bullishness, okay, to bring our ZRX and whatnot. So let's go one at a time here. Let's talk about ADA. Wow, I have not looked at this for a while. This is actually a chart I put out. Interesting. So I actually called for this top off of C or X wave, and this is not kind of to scale, obviously, but yeah, I'm looking for continued bearish continuation here with this ADA Cheds. Now we see we had our really nice double bottom, but now we broke bearish through it. We were very excited about this gorgeous W here, right? And it just failed because we put in a lower low there. Cheds, what are you seeing here?
Well, I mean, the most obvious pattern, can you just go back to what you were showing me before?
In the 4 hour there, sure.
Or just a daily, whatever you're looking at.
Okay.
I mean, it's a pretty obvious bear flag. I mean, it's
down here.
Yeah, it's a bear flag.
And it just broke.
No, it's about, we're at the bottom of a bearish flag. It's a bearish continuation pattern. I mean, it just jumps right out at me.
Yeah, that happens.
So we have a failed, as you saw, W reversal, double bottom. And you kind of almost the length of that too. Look at the length of the failure. This is what I was talking about before, measured target. Look at the left side of this W here where you have that all those red candles in a row. That's almost the length of the break.
Like a 1-to-1 almost.
Yeah, or even kind of from here if you do that from this support. So I mean there's something to that, which would suggest it would so that gives you a chance to maybe bounce. But you're in a bearish continuation pattern. So you have to get an oscillator. You have to measure this versus an oscillator. Do we have divergence? It's something like that. You have a crossing sell signal, potentially on stochastics. You have on balance volume, nothing giving you divergence. So I mean, it looks like a higher low. No, when it looks like a higher low, but it's still bearish continuation pattern.
It's tight. And again, even if we see bullish divergence with the BTC pairing, a declining Bitcoin is still kind of pull down the USD pairing. We see that consistently.
Well, and you're right, but if you're choosing to trade altcoins, you know that, and you're just hoping that it just at least stays flat while hopefully your chart goes up.
Yeah, and it just reminds me, I want to bring this up real quickly here about this tweet I put out a few days ago because I asked the question, if you're buying alts through this moment here, if you still hold alts, and what would your valuation be of those alts if Bitcoin drops another $1,500 or if Ethereum drops another $150? I don't care how bullishly diverging your alt can be. 20% down in the actual value of Bitcoin. Remember, Bitcoin, it's all about Bitcoin. It all runs through Bitcoin. Is going to make your alt worth less, even if the Satoshi is actually higher or kind of holding its value there. So in this bearish market, the divergence with alts is individual, and we have not seen a alt season really since April. And until Bitcoin can stabilize.
Well, what do you think about the people? We saw quite a few people jump out and say alt season, May, June, July, right?
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of bullish sentiment in the market, was there not?
And we saw the Bitcoin dominance increase through this entire time, over 50% now. This is really interesting here. Where'd that money go in the alts? A lot of it is flown into Bitcoin.
So wasn't 50% supposed to be the support?
The resistance.
Well, one way or another.
Well, no.
The point at which the alts would potentially, come back, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. That's the point where Bitcoin's good and
right.
It's a good number, and then okay, go now, money alts, right? No, we're just seeing continuation bleeding. Wow, look at Ripple down to 11 billion.
You pointed out, was it you who pointed out the tweet that showed like this top 10 like 5 years ago?
It was very interesting too because half of those were coins I never heard of. The other half are still around, but are back to like 100 or 200 on the whole list here. Most of these say really just Litecoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin. Maybe Monero's kind of the oldest from that, and Tether. Cardano's very new. Stellar's not as new. EOS, of course, very new. Ripple's been there for a while, but from a market cap standpoint, it's only been in the top 10 the past year, more or less. Monero, the same thing. We all know Tron's newer, and such. So what will this list like be, in a few months or even a year from now? How many of these won't even be around? How many of these will fall way by the wayside? And which new coins potentially will be added?
I mean, well, what do you do if you have no idea? How do you approach that question? You posed a great question. So, like, what?
Well, for a new trader, if they ask you, well, which coins should I trade? And we brought up how volume plays a very important part in the coins you choose. So, by market cap standpoint, you could argue these seem to be where most of the money flow currently is.
But that's for a trader.
Mm-hmm.
That's like an answer for where do you go if you want to put your money in and pull it out. What if you're trying to, tuck it away?
I mean, where
if
you're
what if you're a
longs?
hodler investor, what do you do?
Well, that's a technical term, investor. Well, that's the kind of the debate here, where if you're prepared to hodl with money that you don't need for the rent this month, and then you don't need for your phone bill, okay, you're prepared to see that decline while you accumulate, okay, your favorite coin. If you're a Troner, if you're a Ethereum Classicer, if you're a Nemer, Omisigo, the ones that 0x, the ones that had their parabolic runs, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do it again. There's a very good chance that coins that have not had their parabolic runs will have their parabolic runs better, or have a better chance than coins that had already done it before. And
so 8 of the 10 best moves next year will be new coins.
I would be, yes, because for some reason the ICO money is going to them. They have the power to market these coins, and they'll be
they're not sullied yet.
No, but once bullishness comes back to the market, you're going to see the ones that have the money to push their coins, like we see in the OTC, the ones that have the backing to get the email spammers out.
Well, Tron's, they're making moves, but like their coin price or whatever's not going anywhere, token.
Maybe they already had their moment in the sun. Maybe Tron's best days are behind it now, like a Verge. Maybe even like a Litecoin or like an Ethereum. Actually, reminds us. Let's talk about Litecoin, because we were having this debate earlier in the day about, are we looking for an area that Litecoin is so oversold? And let's face it, Cheds. Last week, Monday, okay, we were at $75, and we dropped $20 in a week in Litecoin at this low price here. Now, we used to drop $20 all the time when we were over 100. We were over 200. To drop that quickly, that percentage drop this quickly in Litecoin. Now, yesterday's candle closed, Chad. So what do you think about this way that this one closed here? Is that a bottom hammer or another hanging man?
Well, it can't be a hanging man,
because
hanging man has to come after an uptrend. It's a hammer. You can call it a hammer. You can call it a spinning top.
The wick down low is pretty significant.
It's at least twice. It looks to be at least twice what you want to see. You need to see 2 to 3 times the size of the real body below. And it's okay to have a little bit of an upper wick. Clearly, it's a reduction of the prior trend. It's a smaller than the prior candle. We are potentially seeing some capitulation volume, 3-4 days back. So that is noteworthy, like you said, to go down $20, which is like 25%.
And we're just seeing this continued bearishness, and then some. In the valuation of Litecoin. I do agree. I mean, I would argue, just where it is in this pattern here.
Yep.
It looks like a bullish bottom hammer.
So if it's a bottom hammer, the way you play it is if you haven't entered yet, you probably would want to look at the middle point of that candle from the high to the low as your potential first entry, and you could scale all the way down into the low of the day candle, and then make that your stop loss.
Almost play like a tweezer, maybe if we start the day bearish,
if it gets there,
and then close bullish, that could put in its own tweezer bottom potentially.
Tweezer if it goes all the way to the low of the candle, and then you maybe put a double bottom. But the point is that's your range. If the whole point is what's your thesis, what's your game plan is that it's a hammer. If it's a hammer, then that's how you're going to play it.
Right. The redness of this candle, but a lot of this was bought up. So a lot of this red was actually
the bulls rejected lower prices, right?
Let's bring up our Bollingers and see kind of what that's looking on the daily. Also, an example here where we were very tight in our BBs here. Little break, but look at just for a day.
Shooting star.
They hate being outside the BBs on the up and the down. And our support on the middle was holding, right? Until we broke it. And not only did our lower support hold, but it actually is now riding the price down with it. So we're back into our BB, which is good. You can only see it doesn't like being out there more than a day or two. And it was resistance, support yesterday. We actually closed in support of our lower BB. Our middle is at 74 and falling. Okay, and this will kind of continue to probably broaden unless we move a little bit higher here, and such. So again, just still bearish.
Well, I mean, you can't just look at these candles without looking what is its horizontal support. Where is its support? You have to zoom out, and what is its context? So it's like, are we near support? In order to, you're just hugging the bottom Bollinger. At some point, you're gonna have to look for a logical bounce area, which would be an area that was prior resistant that's now been converted into support.
It's funny. I remember,
right there, you're right there. So we kind of broke that one.
Yeah, right here.
We broke that support of this peak. See when it bounced here?
Yeah.
See when it bounced? That was resistance. So that would be logical support. Now I'm looking for this low right here. I want to see this low right there. I want to see that low hold. Right? So that's what I'm looking for. Right? And then you have right there. You have the bottom of this candle right there. No, the big one there. Yep. Yep, right there, 33. Exactly. So,
we had talked about when we first entered Litecoin, because we remember Litecoin was one of our earlier investments.
Yep.
And to be back to an area lower than where I originally purchased some Litecoin, and so did you, is pretty fascinating. I wanted to bring up our VPVR because we talk about where the money is, where the money was, And if we go back to Litecoin here, I just want to go back to when we were kind of in the teens or so. We basically see that there was a lot of money between basically 56, where we are now, and basically all the way down to about 40 to 38 here, all the way down to even like the 30s and 20s there. What this basically means here is that that's where our real historic support lies, and we're just beginning to touch the upper crest of that. I think that's why we're actually finding support here right around 55, 56. But as you said before, Cheds, there's a lot of price history cluster literally between where we are currently and all the way down to about 48, which is our next area of historic support that basically the price has held on. So we're definitely not out of the woods yet. And there's a bounce coming. Every time we feel we're dire and the world's falling apart and Bitcoin is dead, that kind of almost seems to be the bottom of some crises.
I mean, if this is all you're presenting to me, and it looks like a decent area to start scaling in. You're at an area of really good support back in September through November, and you're right entering the meat of the volume profile there, in that value area. I mean, so this actually, it's hard to get mad at someone who says this is where I start scaling in.
And we were talking about this. Even if you want to start scaling in the 50s, you must be prepared to potentially have to rescale in the 40s and maybe even the 30s. And again, if Bitcoin goes down to 5K, I don't see how Litecoin is not sub $50.
I mean, it's been underperforming right now, right? Bitcoin's at 63, and then Litecoin's at whatever, $58.
That's a good point to bring up. When do you first start to see some sense of a bullish divergence? Now, this is our LTC BTC, and historically speaking, we're getting back to an area where most of the money was actually.
Looks like a good area, right?
Yeah. And that's the support area here, and definitely here. Now, when Bitcoin went parabolic and Litecoin did not, Litecoin stayed still, this is where actually Litecoin fell and bottomed at 0.005, basically 0.5% the value of Bitcoin. So Litecoin was still like $100 and Bitcoin was around 20,000. That was a Litecoin's low, and technically speaking, that would be Litecoin's low support, which would only kind of come two ways. Either Litecoin gets really bearish, or we see a situation here where Litecoin kind of hold this area here and lessen its bearishness even if Bitcoin continues to fall. Bitcoin obviously continues to lead the way, and if Bitcoin falls, so will Litecoin. What do you got in chat, Richards?
I mean, it's a potential question, a little more philosophical.
Jane wants to know, do you think that banks and governments are using BTC as an experiment before they introduce their own coins? Interesting. A lot of companies like Amazon and a lot of countries have introduced, or at least talked about, creating their own coins in order to solve some of their currency issues potentially, or in just the new form of payment. I mean, could you imagine if Amazon was about to offer either their own token or coin, or partner with some current alt out there? I'd want to be in that alt before that news was announced. So these are all those things that I think will be better use cases and bring Bitcoin, blockchain technology, and crypto in general better to the masses. And that's a great point. It's bullish overall. Better exposure other than what we're getting from CNBC these days would be quite promising. And, I think this year, the way the year ends, is going to be very important. I think, we have seen past times, obviously, where November gets kind of stagnate, but December really picks up. And we do see that alts tend to have a better January consistently. And there's lots of good news that's positioned in November and December. Maybe an ETF, maybe banks allowing crypto, having an own, a desk at Fidelity or at Goldman Sachs where you can actually buy your S&P futures along with some Bitcoin. That would be a great bullish way to get more exposure of it out there. More regulation is bullish for Bitcoin. It allows that longerness to kind of happen here. So I just want to wind up here and we've been talking for about almost an hour. Guys, this is a pretty tough situation here. We've been super bearish in Bitcoin. A lot of our indicators are showing that we're basically getting to areas where you would assume to find some sort of a bounce, some sort of an oversold condition. And any kind of bounce we get to seems to be sold off as profits continue to be taken. I'm kind of keep watching our longs and shorts to get some sense of what's happening in terms of if the shorts get too cocky, too overextended. Just want to bring up one more thing here. Our 200 MA consistently is our major resistance. We just cannot break through it. Once again, rejecting our bullish move here and going lower. How many times are we going to test 6,000 and hold? How many times can we bounce from 6,000? And if we do bounce, we keep putting in lower highs. Okay, so even if we are able to bounce, what are our best expectations? Back to 7K, maybe, who knows? Chad, you got any last words here? Any last thoughts about heading into the weekly close now in Bitcoin and the rest of August?
Well, do you want to look at the weekly chart?
Let's pull up. We got one more day. Tomorrow's the end of the candle.
It's a clear downtrend.
Yikes.
Lower high. You're trying for a higher low. You still have a potential. Either on the candle wick or the candle close. So you have a clearly defined downtrend. The benefit of that is that you can see when it's broken. When you break this series of lower highs. What's the daily chart? We kind of talked about that. It's also, you're showing a couple moving averages. Bearish one, it's flattening out, may not be crossing. So that may be a sign.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels here with some of our EMAs, but again, they're now above our price. When our EMAs were below our price, we like that. They act as support. When we break through them and when we basically show they're acting as resistance, that's another obstacle to break through.
They don't seem to be responding to these EMAs on this chart. They seem to be breaking it or responding to it at will.
I got one hold and I got one break there. It's definitely
but which
something.
one? Which line? You have three lines. One of them is going to hold.
But I like to use the 55 EMA, especially on a longer term time frame here. It definitely shows me a good sense, and you can see clearly price did not tried it here. Actually, this was the beginning of this next day. A little dead cat here, right? And then just not even close. No, down here. The wick is interesting. We have one more day to put in a better wick. Okay, it is possible with a lot of bull volume, maybe even a bottom hammer, as you potentially mentioned. It's possible. Okay, but again,
if you break it, it'd be a great short. That's the bottom line. Because you break it, look at a former tweezer bottom. You have it's not a bear, it's not a bullish harami because the prior candle needs to be large. Go back to the spinning top. Go back to the week right there. So the prior, you'd say, oh, it's a bullish harami.
Right.
It's not. Prior candle has to be bigger.
Oh, okay.
It has to be a large red candle. It needs a two candle combination. It can't just be inside it. It's a harami. Okay, just a little.
Interesting.
So you potentially can risk breaking that tweezer bottom on the weekly, or you put in a higher low.
What's also interesting too is to see where our lower BB support currently is at $5,400. That's actually drifting.
What's that? Is that 200 MA? What is this line?
This is our volume average line.
Oh, yeah.
So this is our top and this is our bottom, kind of an average indicator. But again, our volume's lower.
That's good. That's what you want.
That's true. That's
a decline in the prior force.
Sell volume there.
Correct.
Also, our middle BB now, it will be acting as resistance again. Once was resistance, once was support, is now resistance again. So it was great we were able to break it because we were resisted by it back here, but the failure to hold kind of was your sign there once the middle BB broke.
Kind of a falling wedge. If you just take the last few peaks, the last few peaks, especially here and there.
Somewhere there's a green weekly candle. Somewhere in the next, potentially in August.
But it's a question. It's all we have to either hold or break this support, and that will give us a clear signal, right?
And you also see how wide the BBs used to be. It's good that we're getting tighter here, but you see comparably, this is more natural price action, tighter, and you want stability in Bitcoin. Stability in Bitcoin can really lead to just a more healthier and safer market. But this market is volatile and risky, and I think that's kind of how that's going here. So listen, guys, in the chat room, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to talk to you tonight. It's a very interesting time in Bitcoin. We kind of want to see what August brings here. Be safe, because there's a lot of indirection right now in the market. If Bitcoin is unable to hold these areas here, we could bring in a whole new realm of a break of what is whole. The thing that has held Bitcoin up this entire year of 2018 has been being above $5,700. A break of that area there brings in a whole new world and a whole new narrative. But until then, there's lots of opportunity if you're smart, safe, and know when to take profit. Always use your stop loss, and always be learning, because every day I learn and I improve my skills, and so can you. Guys, remember, you guys can follow me on Twitter. I am at BigChonis. Before I get to BigCheds, I also want to announce I still have a couple more openings for next week's mentoring classes as well. Please feel free to DM me or email me, bigchonis@gmail.com. Cheds, I want to thank you so much for joining us this evening live. Now you guys can follow him on Twitter. He is at BigCheds. He's also a founding member and analyst of Bitcoin Live, and it's a great... well, Cheds, why don't you talk about it?
It's, in my opinion, the best-in-class educational platform. I'm involved with 5 other great teachers. We come up with a lot of unique learning material, and we're kind of trying to teach people of all levels how to take their game to the next level. For the longest time, people asked me why my feed, everything was still free, and I was waiting for a project, in my view, as noble as this to kind of join into. And I'm just really happy to be part of it. But I know you were actually were on with me as well. You were a contributor there as well last week, isn't that right? Or this week?
Yeah, Cheds. The members of Bitcoin Live were able to hear the both of us do some great analysis earlier in the week. And as Ched said, he gets to be involved with some of these excellent traders, chartists, and just all around great people that put out great content. So thanks, Cheds, once again. Thank you, everybody, for joining us in the chat. And be safe out there. I love you guys. Talk to you soon.